Oh, Nintendo. The company that almost never has sales on their games, and you most likely know that you'll be spending $60 if you want to buy a video game from them. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD for the Nintendo Switch is no different. A lot of the times I think the $60 price tag for Nintendo games is fair, but sometimes, not so much. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is full price at $60, and I don't really think that it should have had that price tag. Now, before I continue, I would like to say that I will be looking at this as what this package includes, and not Returns as a video game itself. I have ranked Donkey Kong Country Returns at the bottom of my list of favorite Donkey Kong Country games, and I wanted to make this video based on what you get for $60, and not my opinions on Returns as a platformer. So with that, let's dive into why I bought it in the first place, if Returns isn't exactly my favorite when it comes to the Donkey Kong franchise. I wanted to give Returns another try. Knowing that I can now use traditional controls to play, I figured I'd just give Returns another shot, and with this game having the added content of the 3DS port, and it being in HD and widescreen, and with the convenience of being able to play this on the Switch, I decided to just buy it. When this game was announced and we found out the price, I wasn't really surprised. Because like I said in the beginning of the video, it's Nintendo, and this is typical of them. Upon playing it though, I found something bothersome quite quickly. When I was doing the time trial for the first level, I noticed that when I was retrying it, it was taking a bit to load. After a few times of this happening, it became more noticeable, and it was definitely annoying me. I decided to look up a video and see if anyone was talking about this, and Digital Foundry has a video talking about the loading times, and they said that it is about double of the Wii version. I'm sorry, but for $60, I would like to think that the loading times would maybe be faster, or at the very least the same amount of loading time. I know that this version is in HD, so maybe it has to load more than what the Wii did, but the Switch is much newer hardware than the Wii, and I feel like there should be no excuse for it to be loading almost double the time the Wii takes. I feel like to some, this may be a nitpick, but this extra loading time is not just for time trials. It's whenever you go into a level, which for me, I think I can deal with it being for every time I go into a level, but with the time trials, it was really sucking me out of it. When I'm trying to do something like a time trial, and I mess up, I want to restart right away. I checked out Tropical Freeze on the Switch to have a comparison, and wow is it so much faster. I know that I said that if I'm doing something like a time trial that if I want to restart, then I want to restart right away, but this is fine. The amount of time Tropical Freeze takes, I think, is completely reasonable. It doesn't take long at all. Returns HD, though, is long enough to where it really is annoying to me. This was bothering me on just trying to do the first level, so I can only imagine how much it'll annoy me if I'm doing harder levels and I'm getting frustrated on just trying to do the time trial itself. And then on top of that, I have to wait a while to even be able to retry it. And again, if this still seems like a minor nitpick, this is only on the topic of the game being $60. If this was $40, and this was just a convenient way to play the game in HD with traditional controls, then I'd be way more on board with this. Well, I mean, I would still like it to load faster, but I mean, if it was like this and it was only $40, it's more reasonable. But it's the fact that it is at full price where it's annoying, because I know that these loading times will affect my enjoyment of the game. Also, I'm no programmer, so I don't know if what I'm about to say would have been a ton of work, but it also bugs me that these time trials don't have a leaderboard like Tropical Freeze does. The leaderboard in Tropical Freeze added more game time for me, because it was fun to try to beat my score, and move up on the leaderboard. You were also able to see other players' replays, so you were able to learn new strats, and different ways to approach the time trials. It was also a fun way to compete with friends, by seeing where they were on the leaderboards on time trials for different levels. I'm not asking for a whole new world to be added with a bunch of extra levels. I honestly just wanted stuff that I feel like could have been possible. I feel like faster loading times isn't a huge ask. And since they already have a leaderboard system for time trials in Tropical Freeze, I feel like it's not too far-fetched for me to have hoped that they would have added this system in Returns. I don't mean to diminish the work that it may have taken to make this in HD. I don't know what goes into that, so I'm not sure on how much work it would have taken to get the product that we have now. But considering the fact that people have dissected this game and found that some things seem to be lacking graphically from what the Wii version had, I just don't know how to feel about all this. If you just want a convenient way to play Donkey Kong Country Returns, and to be able to use traditional controls, then you will get that for the $60 price tag. I think your enjoyment of this comes down to what you want out of this game. I think for me, I can handle the loading times with the main game, but doing the time trials, I actually think it's going to get me to tap out sooner than I would have, if the loading times were faster, or at least on par with what the Wii was. I can't express how quickly it became frustrating to want to retry right away, to only be faced with a noticeably long load time. I mean, think about it. If you keep messing up right at the beginning, and you're trying to master it, you're going to be stuck at that loading screen every time. That's where I think it's not going to take much for me to just say, forget it, and continue playing the main game. I'm disappointed though that after I'm done the main game, I'm probably going to have much less of a drive to even want to do these time trials. For me, when I buy a game, it's all about how much game time I can get out of it. It's not that every game should be thousands of hours of game time for it to be worth it, but it's about how much it costs versus how much enjoyment I get out of it. So if I play a game and have a blast for 10 hours and it's priced accordingly, I don't mind at all. But considering that this is a port of a game that has been ported already on the 3DS, I'm really not feeling how this should be a $60 game. Which, saying it like that, that's where I really am confused as to why this is $60, other than because it's Nintendo. This is a port. This isn't some huge undertaking like the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And actually, speaking of Nintendo and their ports, we can look at Mario 3D World for the Switch. That game had a $60 price tag, but they changed the mechanics a little from the Wii U version, which made it more fun in my opinion. It had identical loading times to the Wii U version, added online multiplayer, and added an entire side campaign with Bowser's Fury. I would argue that adding online multiplayer would be harder than adding an online leaderboard. So it really is a shame that Tropical Freeze already had a leaderboard system, and they could have just used that for Returns HD and didn't. Now, I'm sure it's not as simple as just dragging and dropping it from Tropical Freeze to Returns, but it's the fact that this is already a thing that exists in a Retro Studios Donkey Kong Country game. I just really feel like if I'm paying full price for a port, that there shouldn't really be any downgrades. This topic is definitely a weird one to talk about though, because I feel like unless you experience it, you can't really tell how much the loading times will affect your enjoyment. But I already found it noticeable, and I haven't even been playing it that long. When it happened with the time trials on the first level, I already wanted to see if it was comparable to the Wii version, because I could already feel the annoyance of it. At the end of the day, it's your decision on whether or not to buy it. And I'm not really making this video to say not to. This video is more about me wanting to discuss that if Nintendo wants to charge full price, then maybe they should do a little bit more for that price tag. Imagine if they added K. Rool though?